Vanakkam, everybody. We are here today to discuss the Ganesha Pancharatnam. And I have with me Mr. Shankar Srinivasanji and Shiv Simha Sanjeevi, our expert for these discussions. Ganesha Pancharatnam is the Kriti of Adi Shankaracharya of Sringeri, who lived in the 8th century. He composed several great works. He led the philosophical revival of the Sanatan thought through discourse and discussions. So Ganesh Pancharatnam is one of his fine creations. Pancharatnam means 5 jewels. So these 5 jewels have their meanings. First, I will ask Shiv Sanjeeviji to dwell on the meanings of these 5 jewels, the 5 stanzas. And after that, we will ask certain questions to understand what is the hidden meaning, what is the bigger meaning, what is the spiritual meaning behind these. So we will start with, this is a very beautiful, written in Sanskrit. Mudakarat modakam sada vimukti sadakam kaladhara vatansakam vilasi lokrakshakam anayakek nayakam vinashite badatakam nata shubha shunashakam namamitam vinayakam. So this is the first one, and then there are 5, the next 4. So Shiv, I invite you to please explain to us what is the literal meaning in about 3 to 5 minutes, and then we will get ahead with the questions.
Namaskar, Jai Shri Ganesh, Shri Gurubhyo Namaha, Shri Matre Namaha. As you very beautifully introduced, Adi Shankara Bhagavad Padal has given us 5 of these beautiful gems, wherein when we chant it, understanding the meaning and experiencing it, that is when we have an anubhuti, we can understand the greatness, yet at the same time, the easy accessibility of Ganesha. When we start something, generally it's a practice, kuch meetha ho jaye. Let's start off with something sweet. So that is what Adi Shankara Bhagavad Padal has done here. He started off with Mudakarata Modakam. One thing that stands out in the Ganesh Chaturthi festival is the Modak Nevedya. And here again the word Modakam has been used. Mod itself means to be in Ananda or bliss or joy. Here we are talking about the ultimate bliss or joy. That is, I stay centered and in bliss irrespective of what is happening around me. I'm not very easily perturbed by my external circumstances that may change according to my karma. So this Ganesha is capable of bestowing us with that moda. So he starts off with a very sweet note that Ganesha gives us sweetness. And at the same time, he says, apart from happiness, there is something that we all often yearn for, that we talk about mukti. Sada vimukti sadakam. Shri Ganesh is one of the approaches through which we can attain mukti also. And we always invoke Shri Ganesha before we start something to remove all inauspicious things. So we have the concept of Shubh and Ashubh. Shubh meaning the auspicious, good things, and Ashubh meaning the unwanted, negative aspects that are there. So Nashta Shubhashu Nashakam. He is one who destroys the Ashubha. So on one hand, he is going to give you sweetness in life. He is also going to give you mukti, and yet at the same time, he's going to destroy the Ashubha and the obstacles. Namamitam Vinayakam. And there's a very interesting use of the word Vinayaka here. The word Vinayaka here in this context means one who doesn't have a Nayaka or a Lord above him. Many of us look up to heroes. We have a particular hero. But here Vinayaka means he is the one and only superstar. So in our day-to-day lives, this is a concept that we can apply, that Shri Ganesh is someone who is so easily accessible. Adi Shankaracharya then goes on to describe how Ganesha is Samasta Loka Shankaram. Shankara itself means one who does good. Who does he do good to? Often human relationships are, prejudiced with ego. So we will say, I will do good only to X. I will not bother about A. But Ganesha is Samasta Loka Shankaram, to the whole Loka. And you notice the use of the word Loka because it encompasses all beings, living or non-living. And at the same time, Kunjaram, the use of the word elephant, that he is like the mighty elephant that tears down all the trees of obstacles that can be on the part of sadhana, that is our own personal demons inside that stop us from attaining our goals. And it can also refer to the obstacles that are there outside. If the son is like this, generally we say if a son or daughter achieves something, we say the credit goes to the parents. So Adi Shankaracharya describes Ganesha as the son of Shiva in a very simple way. He can call him Shiva Putra or Parameshwara Putra, but he says Nidanta Kanta Danta Kantim Anta Kanta Katmajam. Atmaja, he is the son of Anta Kanta. Anta of Anta, the death of death, meaning Mrityunjaya. He is not an ordinary child, he is the child of Mrityunjaya, the Lord who conquered death itself. So through poetry and through metaphors, Adi Shankaracharya brings out the greatness of the son while keeping the father in the background, that he is Mrityunjaya. We have to conquer our limitations and our death. And here death necessarily does not mean only the physical casting away of the body. Any change is considered equal to, it's a very frightening experience. So to accept those changes, to become Mrityunjaya, to overcome those changes in a dignified manner. And Adi Shankaracharya often knows we have wants and needs in life. So he says, Mahaganesha Pancharatnam Adarena Yonvaham Prajalpati Prabhatake Hridasmaran Ganeshwaram. A point to be noted here. He says, whatever I talk from the morning, whatever I mutter from the morning, Hridasmaran Ganeshwaram, may that be an offering of prayer to do Ganesha. In other words, this is a reminder for us that maybe in the morning, we should utter auspicious things. We should utter, as we saw in the previous lines, Shubha, and doing away with the Ashubha. And Adi Shankara Bhagavad Padal gives us a promise that apart from the anubhuti or the experience of chanting the beautiful Pancharatnam, one who chants this Pancharatnam will be bestowed with a long life, prosperity, and a good life history. It's a trend to write someone's biography or nowadays our own autobiography. When we pen down the autobiography, we want to make sure that we write good things. So Susahitim, he blesses us with a good history that once we leave this dimension, people will look back and talk about the greatness of the person who has been chanting the Ganesha Pancharatnam. And Suputra, to have good children, is also very important. So in these 5 shlokas, he says Shri Ganesha is not an ordinary deity. He looks very cute, he looks very sweet, he induces us with sweetness, but at the same time, he is one of the simplest ways through which we can achieve moksha. So he drives forth the point of Ganapatyam, which is one of the 6 margas established by Adi Shankara Bhagavad Padal to worship the divine in whichever form, among which Ganapatyam is one, or the worship of Ganesha.
So this is a beautifully explained meaning from Sanskrit into English. In the Bharatiya Sanskriti, the Indian civilization, Indian is a misnomer, but given by foreigners, the name, but let's call it the Bharatiya Sanskriti, which is the Sanatan Sanskriti. Sanatan means timeless. for which no time can be given. In this Bharatiya Sanatan Sanskriti, this is the only Sanskriti in the world that believes in the oneness of God, truly believes in the oneness of God. That is why you can take multiple paths. You can imagine the divine in many different ways. And no matter what way you imagine the divine, you reach the same destination. There is no one and only true God. There is no one and only true path. There is no one and only true prophet. There is no one and only true whatever. There are multiple solutions to any situation, and we follow those solutions. So we have imagined the divine. Our ancestors have imagined the divine in many, many different ways. One of those ways is Ganesha, Ganapati. And when we imagine the divine, then we speak the beauties of the divine. Then we are reverent, we are bowing to that divine. Multiple forms of divine have been imagined. What would have been the reason or the need for those who imagined the divine in the form of the Ganesha personality? So what would have been the philosophical reason behind imagining a Ganesha personality born to Shiva and Parvati, where the head got changed, replaced into an elephant head, a sweet personality with a big belly, happy person, calm and easy? What was the reason? What would have been, in your opinion, the reason to imagine such a divine personality?
The Gurus and our Puranas and our Itihasa, our history, describes that the divine is, when we offer our prayers, we say, Tameva Bandhu cha Sakha Tameva. That apart from my parents, you are also my friend and my relative. So if you take the very form of Sri Ganesha, the replacement of the head with an elephant head, the stories are many, the origin are many. For example, we know how Devi Shakti created Lord Ganesha out of turmeric, and then the head was replaced with that of an elephant. If you take the Brahmanda Purana, you have Lalita Parmeshwari and Kameshwara, who are Shiva and Shakti, creating Ganesha in that form as he is described already, with an elephant head. So the main purpose here is, why the elephant head? I mean, we have so many animals. The biggest concept of an elephant is, one, it is one of the most mightiest and powerful animals with no natural predators. And yet it does not use its power to its own whims and fancies. For example, if some of us get into power, we may end up doing anything. History is full of all these things. But despite having the power, an elephant just does not go about destroying civilizations. In fact, it is very calm. So here, the concept is, when we meditate on Sri Ganesha, or when we look at Sri Ganesha in a temple, we should remind ourselves that with great power comes great responsibility. Yes, we may have been bestowed great responsibility, great power, but let us use it correctly. Let us channelize it correctly. And the big elephant ears ask us to listen more, to assimilate more. And one more interesting thing about the elephant is, just look at other animals, dog, cat, crocodile, monkey, etc. The mouth is open. You can see the mouth, including us humans. But for an elephant, the mouth is covered with the trunk. That is why Ganesha is known as Sumukha, one who has the good mouth, because the mouth is not visible unless the trunk is opened. So here Sri Ganesha gives us a very important point, because throughout history, and even now if you see, majority of the problems are because of the wrong things being told at the wrong times, or things that are not told at the apt moment. So Sumukha, Ganesha, reminds us to be aware of what we are speaking. And the very big belly talks of his all accepting nature, that he is ready to accept, because we say Vakratunda Mahakaya, to say that this very darling-like form of Sri Ganesha that we love is someone who is at the same time very big. Because if you see the Ganapati Atharva Shirsham, it says the whole universe is him. So he is not only the whole universe, packaged in a very simple way that every common person can also understand.
Another, this a very beautiful aspect of the Bharatiya Sanatan civilization is that we are the only surviving civilization that gave equal importance to humans and to animals. Is God only for the humans? Is there no God for the animals? Or is the same God not similarly responsible for animals just because they don't speak a language that we speak? So this is a very high level of understanding where animals are as divine and have as much a right to be represented as God as any human being. This is a very high level of civilizational development of those ancient times, and this existed even in other ancient civilizations. It is the latest forms of some of the civilizations where it's all human-centric. Otherwise, the Greeks, the Romans, the Aztec, the Mayans, they always had the animal representations as well. And since we are the only ones surviving from that antiquity, we carry forward that tradition even now. And hopefully we will carry this forward, and the people in the world will understand that animal and human are ultimately all living beings and all animals, including the plants and trees. My next question to you, Shivji Simhaji, is what is the reason behind reciting the various attributes and greatnesses of the different forms of the divine? For example, we are reciting, we are speaking the mantras in which we are speaking the attributes. What is the goodness? What are the looks? What is the beauty of this divine? How does it matter to us? Does it matter to us? How it matters to us? This is from the perspective of a young person in today's time who would like to ask, how does it matter to me? If Ganesha had a big belly, and if he was a nice person, he's a wonderful person, very intelligent being, very calm. Why do I want to say this? Why don't I come to the point? What does Ganesha signify to me? So this is the generation of fast food, the quick generation. So this generation would need an answer. What is the reason behind reciting the beautiful attributes of the goodnesses of any form of divine, including Ganapati?
Okay, I'll just come in a bit here before Shiv
Yes.
takes up the answer.
Yes, Shankar, you please interject anytime.
Just one small line here. In our Sanatana Dharma, there are no rights. So it's not that animals have rights. It is that humans have duties.
Right.
We are based on dharma. So our dharma requires us to protect those who cannot speak for themselves.
Yeah.
That is a small distinction compared to any other philosophy. And now
Wonderful.
Take over the attributes, but mainly attributes were given for all abstract concepts because one, they allow us a physical presence on which you can bring your mind. And your mind only accepts the human form or some animal form. Anything beyond that is abstract and is very difficult for you to center your thoughts on. The second part for the attributes are again to fix a timeline for that particular event. For example, let us say it says that Ganesha is required for is the person who gave you the knowledge of medicine. Let us say that's one of the attributes. So basically it says that if Ganesha is that primordial time being, when the earth itself had not formed, and he is the one responsible for giving you the knowledge of medicine, now there is no being. But basically what it's saying is that the knowledge of medicine as practiced by us, which is Ayurveda, the first virus or the bacteria and its treatment in the form of some plant life happened with the first form of land which came out after the the super volcanoes happened, which created the earth. So I mean, each of these concepts of our pantheon of gods has these two dual basic concepts. Of course, now Shiv will take on, but I think we have run out of time for this episode. In the next episode, we'll take up your question.
So next questions will come to the next episode. And for today, namaskar and vanakkam, and we will see you again in the episode 3.